Hi, good morning. My name is Ashish Behel. I'm from Good Gear Hub, and we are back with our podcast. Today's podcast is extremely important. It can possibly save lives. The topic is essential gear for emergencies and first aid. Riding a motorcycle is nothing like it. The freedom and no distractions and your time and etc. etc. But the problem is whether you're riding solo or with a group, and I've seen this happen too often. And as recent as day before yesterday, where a rider friend crashed. They were about they were riding in small groups, and when he got injured, everyone congregated. None of them had a first aid kit, and these are educated people. Ride fancy bikes, wear fancy riding gear, but for some odd reason, they can't keep a first aid kit. The rider in concern, he's got broken bones. He had to wait 3 hours to get medical help, but mercifully, is in hospital recovering. So let's get into this. And I don't have to paint you a picture. Imagine, you're just riding, whether it's the mountains, coast, wherever, doesn't matter. Weather's perfect, you're feeling good, and as you keep riding more and more, the traffic dissipates, and then basically you're in your zone of, what we call the biker zone. And you are, as most bikers do, pushing yourself. Suddenly, you take a turn which is a little too tight, and unfortunately, there's gravel on the road, and bam, you're down. Now what? And as is happening more and more with riders, we just don't check our kit enough or think about what if there is an emergency. So this rider who's gone down, he's skidded from his bike, so he's a few feet away. And as he tries to move, he discovers that, he's injured and he can't really move. He looks at his phone, the phone is dead. It's a small crash, as in, we don't know whether he's got broken bones or not, but the bottom line is he needs to call for help. And then he looks up on the skies, there are clouds appearing, it may rain. So what do you do? Now, either you can really start praying, for a miracle that somebody passes your way, but, as being a fearless rider, you've chosen a desolate path. Maybe you're in a forest, maybe you're in an off-road, but since bikers don't like traffic too much, it's kind of a desolate road and there is not much traffic happening. You haven't seen anyone for the last 30 minutes, and you sit lying there hoping and praying somebody passes your way. Do we really want this scenario? I don't think so. At Good Gear Hub, we've learned the hard way, like most riders do. But now we carry an enormous amount of supplies. When I say enormous amount, it's not that bulky. There are three small packs. The height of the pack is maybe 5 inches by 4 inches. And I'll put down buy links for everything in the description. So let's get into it. What all do you really need to carry? First is the first aid kit. Every rider knows falls happen. Sometimes it's just a scrape, sometimes laceration, sometimes it's broken. Inside the first aid kit, there are various kinds of first aid kit. The very basic one will have bandages, wipes, pain relievers, CPR mask, etc. And then there are the advanced ones which will have tourniquets, wound closure kit. So we carry three things. First is a basic first aid kit which has normal everyday. Second has a CPR mask and a tourniquet. The tourniquet is very, very important. God forbid you break something and there's a lot of bleeding happening. How do you stop the bleeding? Of course, you can tie it up with any rope or any piece of cloth that you have, but a tourniquet is always better. And since on rides there's a lot of times gravel involved, therefore the wound closure kit, which helps seal the wounds without needing stitches. Now comes the second issue. You are down, you need help. Either your phone is dead, or as happens a lot in the mountains, there is no signal. So there is a SOS satellite communicator that you need. We carry the Garmin InReach Mini 2. There is also the Zoleo one or the SpotX one, the solid pics. Why these communicators? These communicators work without any mobile signal. They communicate via satellite, so this is literally your lifeline. Okay, moving on. Another thing that we carry is a backup phone. It's a low cost mobile phone which uses 4G data, but these are rough and tough phones, and if your fancy smartphone is not working, maybe this will get signal. And usually this phone is on a different network provider than your main phone. Some of the options that we have experienced or recommended is the Nokia C32 or the Cat S42 or the Unihertz Atom. Like I say again, don't worry about the details too much. It's all there in the description, including buy links. Moving on, you try and shout for help, you have one horse shouting for help. There's nobody listening. So therefore, there are now devices like the KUROS alarm. It's compact, very, some $15 or something. It's very loud. You can hear it for 4 miles. Or the other option is the birdie alarm or the hyper whistle alarm. Now, imagine this, the rider who's fallen, there's night approaching. He's still stranded in the middle of the road. Maybe, a couple of hours has passed and he desperately needs to communicate with someone. So there are hand crank emergency radios and flashlights. These are as basic as it gets. So these work on it, if you've ridden bicycles and used a dynamo for the headlight, same principle. Basically, you crank the radio, it gets a charge, and then you can charge your phone. And also has flashlights. Good picks are the Eton or the Midland ER210. Again, links in the description. We always carry a multi-tool. I personally, have a thing for multi-tools. So I carry a Leatherman and a Victorinox. The Victorinox is the Swiss multi-tool, with full tools, etc. You never know when you need it. Almost on every night I have used it. Now, is this it? No, this is not it. There are some basics that you can do to make your chances, no pun intended, but it just came out, of making your chances brighter of getting help. First is wear a high visibility jacket. Almost every biking store or Amazon has it. Secondly, we put helmet lights. They're small, lights. Usually you can fix it with Velcro. They're chargeable. They might not look cool, but trust me, in fog or in snow or in rain, they make sure that you are seen. The other hack that we learned, across our riding journey is there are these bicycle lights, the one which come with, rubber band clip-ons. We put those on I use a tail bag, so I always put it on my tail bag. And moment the weather changes or come evening or early morning, I put the lights on. You have to double check about the legality of these lights in your country, but I don't think there's going to be a problem because you're really trying to be visible. You're not creating a nuisance or anything. Then there are other simple things that we do. Anytime any member of Good Gear Hub is on a ride, he puts his location on WhatsApp, and there's a mandatory practice of checking in every hour. In case the rider hasn't checked in, somebody from the team calls and checks. Why do we do this? God forbid if there's a accident. So okay, so I had a crash in about 3 years back, and in the aftermath of the crash, I wasn't able to check in, but Sumit Berry was checking my location and he called me. Luckily, I had signal, so I told him, the crash happened. I was about 100 km from where we live, and he immediately came and helped me. But I was lucky. Not everybody is not so lucky. The moot point really comes down to: do I have to carry 50 things? No, you don't. Simple things. Firstly, be visible. High visibility jacket, helmet lights, baggage lights. Secondly, carry a first aid kit. Today, the practice is, even if we're going for a breakfast ride, I usually take a tank bag. First thing I put in the tank bag is the first aid kit. We carry 3 first aid kits. You can read about them in the description. First is the Moscow Motto one, then is a more advanced kit, and then there is the Closex wound closure kit. On breakfast rides, I usually carry one, and then you need just carry a backup phone and put your location. These are the bare minimum things you can do. Because guys, please understand, while the spiritualism side of motorcycling is fine, but you also have a responsibility. You have a responsibility to your own life, to your friends and family, and to motorcycling in general. Also, think of it this way: the first aid kit you might not need. You might come across an accident where you might administer first aid kit and save a life. I have used my first aid kit at least 20 occasions, not on myself. So, forget the cost. It's more of an attitudinal change that needs to happen. Buying a $20,000 motorcycle, then spending another $2,000 in gear, and we can't spend, $200-300 in first aid kits and something that can actually save lives. So, moment you adopt a philosophy, alive today, right tomorrow, things are going to change. Please spread this message and carry that first aid kit. This is Ashish Bell from Good Gear Hub signing off. Ride on, ride more. Speak soon. Bye-bye.